Okay, so it looks like we're right at 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. My name is Abby Davis. I'm with the Easton Center for Career Readiness, and this is something that we've been doing. This is our third semester doing a boot camp for graduating seniors, but it's the first time we've had to do it virtual. So we appreciate you all being here with us today, and going through some good tips, tricks, and tools and resources that we'll share. I did just go ahead and send a welcome to the chat box so that hopefully you see that, and we'll talk about how you can submit questions there here in just a minute. But just wanted to say how much we miss having all of you on campus. We hope that you are all doing well, and I know that we're all living through kind of a new normal right now, but we hope you're doing well. We can't wait to see you all soon and in the near future, hopefully. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And one other person I'm going to introduce, we have a few of the Easton Center team members that are on this call with us today. Kelly Ebert is going to also help facilitate and answer or let me know when we have questions come in. Kelly, do you mind unmuting yourself and just letting me know that you can hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. If anybody has any audio issues or anything like that, please let me know. But we'll just talk about a couple housekeeping items before we get started. First, if you don't mind, please mute your microphone if you're not speaking, but if you have a question, feel free to unmute and chime in at any point. This session is being recorded, so we're going to record this and we'll post it on our Easton Center website along with the rest of our series so that you can have access to those. There will be an opportunity to ask questions throughout the presentation as well at the end. So two things, you can unmute your microphone and ask questions throughout this. You can also click on chat. So I sent a chat, so everyone should hopefully be able to see that. You can submit a question. Kelly will be monitoring that and letting me know when we have questions come in. In the chat function in Zoom, you can send a message to the whole group. You also have the option to send a message privately to anyone in the group. So if you just want to send a question directly to me or Kelly, you can certainly do that as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and dive on in and talk about what the goal of this virtual bootcamp series is. And the first is to gain a better understanding of the current job market. That's what we'll be doing today. A lot has changed. A lot is changing every single day. And so we're going to do our best to bring you up to speed about what's going on in the economy as well as the current job market. We'll talk about a tangible plan to assist in achieving your career goals. There's a lot of tips and tricks that we're going to be sharing. We would be lying if we didn't say that everyone's going to have to try a little bit harder. You're going to have to work very hard during your job search, but we're going to give you all the tools and resources you need to help create a plan to ultimately, lead to you being successful. Developing awareness of your personal strengths and development opportunities when it comes to your job search. Maybe you have a very strong resume and you've worked really hard on it, but interviewing is something that you need to work on further. So we hope throughout this program, you'll be able to learn more about what areas you really need to focus on and where we need to practice more. At the Easton Center, we did mock interviews this morning, and you can tell which students have really practiced their interviews and which ones haven't had as much experience doing it. No one's really born naturally good at interviews. It takes a lot of practice. So understanding strengths and development opportunities. And then getting creative with your job search. A job search may look a little bit different than what it did even a couple months ago. And so we're going to share a lot of resources and help you think outside the box and get creative with your job search. So let's talk about our agenda for today. We'll introduce the boot camp as well as the competencies that are going to be tied to this session specifically, and every session is going to have competencies tied to it. We'll talk about the state of our current job market, talk about recalibrating expectations, and saying that the position that you thought you were going to have right after graduation may look a little bit different, and that's okay. But how can we think creatively and have an open mind about that? Holding yourself accountable, we'll give you some information there, specifically around how to build a strategy, creating a timeline, and then tracking activity. It can get really overwhelming very quickly whenever you're sending out a lot of applications and you're emailing with recruiters. And so you don't want to embarrass yourself by emailing someone that you just emailed the day before. So we'll talk about coming up with a way to track your activity so that you can stay organized throughout your job search. And I put this picture in here for one big reason, and that's the fact that the current job market and the economy, we're going through some tough times. We're going through some tough times as a nation here in the state of Oklahoma, and we need to understand what is going on so that we can better prepare ourselves for what we're going to be going into. But we're going to be ending this presentation, this workshop on a high note. I truly believe that where the opportunities that you're going to have after graduation lead you to down the road is ultimately going to be more beneficial for you. I graduated during a recession, and so I'll share some pieces about my story as we go throughout this. But I just want to set the expectation that some of this is not going to be fun information, but we need to know it so that we're educated about what's going on. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the presentation. So career competencies. Hopefully you've heard about career competencies. We talk about them a lot in the Easton Center, but we've gone through for every workshop and picked out which competencies apply to each of the workshops. So for this one, there's 4 competencies that really tie in: accountability, adaptability, managing ambiguity, and being resilient. We'll look at each of these, and then I also pulled some quotes that I feel like are very applicable. When it comes to accountability, being able to hold yourself accountable. As I mentioned, we might have to work a little bit harder right now to get an interview. And so it's going to be really important to develop that discipline and that structure to help hold yourself accountable. I love this quote. I attribute my success to this. I never gave or took any excuse. And so being able to, look at the current situation and not make an excuse to not try. We've heard some recruiters say that applicants have voiced the opinion of, well, why should I even try? It's not going to happen. And that's not true. And so we don't want to have that mindset. Adaptability, adapting approach to shifting demands and having an open mind about pursuing different paths or new paths. There are thousands and thousands of different directions that you can go after graduation. And it's amazing that, and when we're in college, we just don't learn about many of those career paths. And now's an opportunity to dig into that. So a wise man adapts himself to circumstances as water shapes itself to the vessel that contains it. So where we can see more opportunities based upon having an open mind and being flexible. Managing ambiguity. This is a tough one, and it's operating confidently and effectively, even when things aren't certain or the way forward is unclear. Personal ambiguity is really tough. Not knowing where we're going to be in 3 months, not knowing, what the situation in our country is going to look like in August. We just don't know yet. And that's tough. As human beings, it's difficult to go through that. But we're going to share some strategies to help you effectively navigate any feelings or emotions that you're going through right now. And this is a very powerful quote, but take advantage of the ambiguity in the world. Look at something and think what else it might be. You could learn about a new position or a job that you didn't know existed that is a much, much better fit for you than any other job that you were thinking about. So look at this as an opportunity to get curious and find more out about what's out there. And then being resilient, which is rebounding from setbacks. Difficult, negative things happen in life, but it's how we bounce back from those. This is probably one of my all-time favorite quotes from Nelson Mandela. Do not judge me by my successes, but judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. So we'll circle back through some of these, but these are the 4 competencies that really tie into what we're talking about today. So where are we today? This is a graph of the Dow Jones, the stock market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average from 2008 to, well, about a week ago. And I show this to you because I think it's important to see how our stock market responds to shifting demands in our economy and things that are going on, but also look at the incredible growth and resiliency that we have as a country. So to give a little bit of perspective, I graduated right around here. Hopefully you can see my mouse, but right between 2008, 2009, I graduated. I took a job that was kind of a part-time, not really what I wanted to do, and it didn't work out. So I actually moved home with my parents that summer after graduation, which didn't really feel good. And I eventually landed a position in Oklahoma City working for a healthcare company. And I actually remember exactly where I was on this day. And this is when the stock market did another big crash. I remember being at work that day. I remember my coworker and where he was sitting. This is one of those events that the country really started to panic. And yes, it did get a little bit worse after that. But then look at the resiliency and the growth that we see from there. I ended up going back to grad school. I knew that the economy wasn't in, the best shape, and thought I'll go back to grad school. By the time I graduate, things will pick back up again. And I graduated right around, right around here. In 2011 is when I graduated with my MBA and went back into the job market. I'll share more details about that later. But if we look at this by, we could look at this by presidential term if you want to, keeping in mind that, the stock market isn't a direct reflection of who is the president at the time, but it's nice to kind of to think of it sometimes in that way. So we had President Obama in 2009, and we saw some, steady growth essentially throughout that time. And it took a lot of work to have slow, steady growth. 2016, we had the new administration with President Trump. And we've seen a lot of rapid growth. I mean, our economy has grown so much in a very short time period. We can see where we were just about last week. And so we had a big fall. But I show you this that in perspective, we still have had a lot of growth. Yes, we've lost some of the progress that we've made the past couple years. But again, we're very resilient. Things bounce back, and we've already seen the stock market come back really at amazing levels this week. The stock market has been up Monday, Tuesday, and today is Wednesday, April 8th, and we've seen the stock market continue to climb, which is news that investors are seeing confidence in companies and what's going on right now. So I show you that because it's a good visual overview. I'm going to pause here again. If you have questions throughout this presentation, please feel free to unmute yourself and chime in. But I'll keep going unless I hear from one of you. So let's talk about some of the specific industries that have been impacted with what's going on. Retail. Obviously, retail, you can't go to Academy right now or Old Navy or the Apple store, so retail has been hit pretty hard. The hospitality industry, think restaurants, think hotels, in general, the hospitality industry. Travel. Entertainment that goes along with travel, resorts, has been impacted. The arts, entertainment, movie theaters. The oil and gas industry. Now, the oil and gas industry, what it's facing right now actually isn't really related to COVID-19 at all. It has to do with some tensions between us and Russia and Saudi Arabia, but it's still an important factor. We're in Oklahoma, we're in the Midwest. So it's important for you to understand what's going on in the oil and gas industry, whether you're looking to work in that industry or you're in the Midwest. It's good to know what's going on there. And then also think about the companies that are supporting these industries. So for example, I have a friend who works for a company in Oklahoma City. And if you go into a small coffee shop or a bakery, or any small kind of restaurant establishment, and if you pay and they have an iPad, so I think of Thai Loco here in Stillwater. So you go into Thai Loco, you pay, and you're swiping your card on an iPad. Well, her company creates the software that a lot of these smaller companies use to collect payment. So if you think about it, that's a company that's not in any of these industries, but that's being impacted by a lot of restaurants being closed. So there are industries that aren't reflected here that are still indirectly being impacted, but we'll talk more about what that looks like. I'd like to take a second to do a little bit of a deep dive on the energy industry because it's so close to home to us. And again, I think it's important for all of us to have an understanding of what's going on. So here's a view of oil prices over time since the 1950s until I took this last week. I think we're back up around $27 a barrel last time I checked. To give you some perspective, I worked in the oil and gas industry around this time. We were around $100 oil. So $100 compared to 25, 27, it's a lot more revenue coming in, and you can do very well in the oil and gas industry, especially when prices are there. We saw the drop here in 2014 that hurt a lot of oil and gas companies, especially here in Oklahoma. We've seen some recovery, but again, a big drop. What I want to show you next is talking about how much it costs to produce a barrel of oil, because you can look at this and say, okay, so they're not making much money, but it's important to understand how much it costs to actually get oil out of the ground here in the US and what these numbers really mean. So before I flip to the next slide, like I said, right now, present day, we're hovering around $27 a barrel is what you would pay to buy a barrel of oil. So if we dig deeper, this is based on a survey that the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas conducted. In the US in general, the average break-even price for a barrel of oil is between $48 and $54 per barrel, meaning that if I'm going to get a barrel of oil out of the ground, it's going to cost me, and my break-even is 48 to 54. So we don't have to be a mathematician or a finance expert to do the math on this. $27 is below this, meaning that companies are actually losing money by drilling right now. And you can't just stop drilling. You can't call the superintendent and say, hey, Charlie, shut down all the rigs. It doesn't work like that. So the oil that's coming out of the ground right now is at a loss, and that has a big impact on these industries. Now, I don't think it's going to stay like that. It sounds like Saudi Arabia and Russia are hopefully gonna cut back how much oil they're releasing right now. But this gives a good perspective of how much it costs to produce a barrel of oil and what impact prices have on our local energy companies. So we can see oil and gas industries being impacted right now. Again, you also have service companies that support them. So a Halliburton, for example, they're not exactly drilling and finding their own oil and gas, but companies contract through them. And so there's service companies like that that are being impacted as well, unfortunately. We'll talk about a little bit about what's going on in the labor force. So job losses, unemployment, again, these aren't fun topics. I'm not going to share fun numbers with you, but I promise there's a light at the end of the tunnel. With job gains and losses, so when a company conducts a layoff, they're typically going to be reducing specific positions. So for example, some companies have an outside sales force or anything that's going to interact with customers. And if they're not able to do those jobs, and those could be positions that are going to be let go. So the 700,000 isn't necessarily tied to individual people. These are jobs that can be tied to lots of people, but 700,000 jobs is what we were looking at as being reduced. And this was the March jobs report. When we look at unemployment, the Department of Labor said that in March we were at 4.4%. Keep in mind, before that we've been in the 3% range. Dallas, Texas has been around 2% unemployment because it's been booming there so much. So when you see 4.4, you think, well, okay, that's not that bad. I mean, it's really not that bad. But these numbers aren't 100%, I don't want to say accurate, but they're delayed. So the Department of Labor, it takes time for them to get this information, for them to update their unemployment projections. And so this was just from March, but a lot of things have happened in the past week or 2 weeks. And so what we're seeing is that the actual unemployment claims, we were at 3.3 million on March 21st, but then just 7 days later, we had another 6.6. So we're floating around 10 million people in the US that have filed for unemployment just within the past couple of weeks. So that 4.4% number isn't really accurate at the moment. And the New York Times, they're projecting that we're probably closer to about 13% unemployment. So again, I'm going to show you a graph, and we can see how unemployment has ebbed and flowed over time. Back to the 2008 recession, and before that, up here, we can see that it got up to 10%. But keep in mind that what's happening with COVID-19 is companies are having to force shut down. So we're seeing a lot of different industries impacted now than in 2008. So one of the lights that we see at the end of the tunnel, especially for college graduates, is that in 2008, a lot of the positions that were impacted were white-collar professional positions. We were seeing a lot of people, a lot of degreed professionals that were losing their jobs because it was tied to the financial markets failing. What we're seeing here with COVID-19, there are certainly professional positions that are being impacted, but we're also seeing a lot of lower skilled or high skilled type positions that may not require a college degree. Think restaurants, again, think hotel operations directly that are being impacted, which is why these numbers, in my opinion, are so much higher than what we saw in 2008. So let's bring it up a little bit and talk about who is hiring and what that means for you specifically. Technology companies are still hiring, especially those that can assist employees from working from home. We're seeing a lot more remote work. Think of Zoom. My goodness, I'm sure Zoom has hired a lot of people over the past couple weeks to help pull up their bandwidth. But tech companies in general are hiring, and good news, we have a giant one right here in our backyard. Paycom, based out of Oklahoma City, they're going to be opening up another headquarters in Dallas that may be delayed with everything that's going on. Now, they're not, they may not be hiring for all of the positions that they once were, but they are still hiring. I just checked their website before this webinar again. Start times may be a little bit delayed. They may ask you to start in July versus June 1st or even August 1st, but they are still hiring. On this note, before I forget to mention it, there's also positions that we can get creative in thinking about. Maybe it wasn't something that you considered, but a help desk position or an IT position. Because so many employers are having their employees work from home and do remote work, that means that we need more IT workers and more IT professionals to help people like me figure out how the heck to use Zoom or how the heck to, sign into my remote desktop and things of that nature. And a help desk position is typically an entry-level position. Now you may say, well, I'm a marketing, major. What do I know about help desk? Everything that you would do as a help desk professional are things that I know all of you are capable of learning. So it may mean that getting a job with that company that you really, really want to work for, it could be taking a job that you haven't considered before, or you haven't even thought that your skill set would be good for. But it's something that you can figure out and would get you a good foot in the door. Transportation and logistics. When I say transportation, I don't mean transporting humans, but packages. So more people are getting things obviously shipped to their home. And good news again, we have another giant one in our backyard. In Tulsa and Oklahoma City, we're seeing that Amazon is hiring. There's a lot of positions here. I'm seeing HR positions popping up on my LinkedIn feed every week that Amazon is hiring for HR business partners, so they are hiring. Also think about your essential businesses. Think pharmacies. Think about everyone that has to be open right now or can be open right now because they are considered an essential business. And again, we have a big one in our backyard, which is Love's Travel Shops out of Oklahoma City. They've just announced, and I'm not going to quote it, but it's several thousand positions that they're going to be recruiting for in response to COVID-19. Now, again, their corporate office is in Oklahoma City, so some of those will be corporate professional positions. Some of those may also be supervisor or manager type positions as well. But that's one other industry or area that will be hiring. Digital entertainment. So Disney Plus, they've been great. They've released Frozen 2, and I can't remember the other movie that they said they're going to release before it even goes to the movie theaters. But digital entertainment is an industry that's still hiring. Healthcare, and I'm going to put a disclaimer on this as it depends. We're seeing that some hospitals are having to lay off people because non-critical surgeries aren't taking place right now, but we're also seeing other areas in healthcare that are hiring, pharmaceutical industry, industries like that we're seeing hiring. In the government, so there's more government support right now, so we're seeing government still hiring. Distance learning. So think about what we're doing right now, except take it out of a college setting. A lot of employers want to provide their employees with professional development opportunities. They can't send them to conferences this summer. They've been all canceled. They can't send them, to go get a certification. And so e-learning through professional development opportunities is something that's also ramping up more and more. And then nonprofits. And I want to make a special note about nonprofits, and we'll share more about where to go to look for positions. But if you're interested in staying in Oklahoma, I'd urge you to check out the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits. You can just Google that, Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits. You go to their job board, and you will see job postings for nonprofits all over across the state of Oklahoma. And right here in Stillwater, we know that Our Daily Bread, they're going to be hiring a few positions soon. This could be a great opportunity for you to go and work for a cause that you are very passionate about, for a couple of years until we see the economy pick back up. And so I want you to consider that, because I think to a recruiter, that story is a very positive one to say, I couldn't find a financial analyst position straight out of college, working for the firm that I wanted to, but I was able to work for this nonprofit. I was able to develop a payroll system for them, or I was able to develop an inventory system. It's a way to show that you're, working to do what you can to help your community, given the current climate. So what does this mean for you? What does this mean for all of you, whether you're graduating this May or you're graduating in December or shortly thereafter? It goes back to that word adaptability. And the first thing, and I think it's important for all of us to do this, is acknowledge and name the emotions that we're feeling. It is so normal to feel scared and anxious and just overall stress from the current situation. That's normal, and it doesn't make it okay or easier to deal with. But it's okay to be feeling that way. And I'm going to share a Harvard Business Review article that I just saw with you. It's called "That Discomfort You're Feeling is Grief." And you can put that into Google. Harvard Business Review gives you 3 free articles a month, I believe. And it's directly talking about COVID-19 and how we are all, whether we really understand it or not right now, how we're all grieving. We're grieving those connections with our friends that we haven't been able to see for a while, or going to visit grandma, or we're grieving over the fact that I don't get to see students in person anymore. I will eventually, but these are all things that actually lead to signs and emotions of grief. So the first thing that we want you to do is just understand and put a name to what you're feeling, because that's the first step into effectively navigating how we're feeling in these emotions. The next is to think about what you can control and what you can't. We've had a number of students say, I lost my internship, employers aren't going to be interested in me, or, what if I don't have a job and how is that going to look? There are some things that you can't control. All we can do right now is focus what is in our sphere of influence and control right now. And I know that's easier said than done. But no one is going to judge you for taking a different position than what you initially thought, or judge you for going a different direction. It's what's right for you in this current circumstance, and we're here to help and guide you along the way. Letting go of old expectations and embracing a mindset of curiosity. We talk to students and we get excited about this. We'll have students come in and they know exactly what they want to do after graduation. And we love that because it shows your enthusiasm, your passion for a particular topic, whether it's working in athletics, or I had a student say, I'm going to work in marketing for Disney, and I loved hearing that. And I don't want you to lose that enthusiasm and that passion for the areas that you're interested in. But it might change a little bit, and that's okay. And it may take us a little bit longer to get there. So I'll share with you, I told you I went back to grad school, and that was 2009 as the economy was still dipping down quite a bit, and I graduated in 2011, and my degree is human resources. I could not find a job in human resources for the life of me. And that was hard because that's what I really wanted to do. So instead, I took a job with a company that specializes in safety. And while safety is not directly HR, there's a lot of companies that may not be very safety sensitive, where safety and the OSHA programs are part of the HR function. And so to me, that was a creative way to say that I was getting some HR experience by working in the safety industry. And crazy enough, about a year when I was into that job, I had a recruiter contact me from an oil and gas company on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn was actually around then too. And she contacted me about an HR position, and that led to my career in HR. And I don't think I would be where I am today if I wouldn't have taken that pivot to go into safety and then transition into HR and oil and gas to where I am today, which is 100% where I want to be, and I wouldn't be anywhere else. Being open to learning about jobs that you may not have considered or heard about before. Their compensation, that's a position that I worked in. I didn't know that compensation was something that you could do. And I loved it. It was one of my favorite positions in HR. I still geek out about compensation to my team sometimes, but being open to learning about jobs you've never heard about before, because you may realize that it's a better fit for you than other positions you've considered. Be open to the possibility of an interim career stage. You may have not considered grad school, and now grad school may, sound like something that you should consider or you're interested in looking into. Another interim career stage is what I mentioned earlier. Let's say, for whatever reason, you need to go to Ponca City after graduation, and so you go back to Ponca City and you can't find a professional position in your hometown where you need to be because of the current climate. I want you to be creative about, okay, so what can I do to give back and help my community until things pick back up? That may mean that you're taking a position that's helping at the local supermarket or at the post office, and you're volunteering at some of the nonprofits and helping out there wherever you can. I don't think there's anything wrong with down the road being able to explain to a recruiter when they say, tell me about what it was that you were doing in Ponca City or at the post office and volunteering. And your story is, I couldn't find a position being a marketing coordinator, which is what I wanted to do after graduation. But I saw it as an opportunity to do whatever I could to help my community through the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I started volunteering at some of my local nonprofits and did whatever I could. And now, thankfully, things have picked back up and I'm ready to go back to pursuing that dream of being a marketing coordinator. There's no shame in that. And if I was the hiring manager, I'd hire you in a heartbeat, because it just shows your willingness to help others. We want to show you just a quick resource called Candor. And this is something that, this is the founder here, where they're updating companies, that a list of companies of those that are hiring, those that are freezing hiring. So I'm going to click on this and pull it up for you. And feel free to take a screenshot of this or a picture. And again, we'll be posting this information for you. But they're updating this live. Now, I will say the disclaimer is that users are reporting this information. So I could technically go in and make a comment if I wanted to about Oklahoma State University, but it's still a good place to go to check. If you have your heart set on going to work for Boeing and you don't know, if they're hiring or not, this could be a good place to start. So if we go down through here, it's just alphabetical, but they're going to tell you if a company has a hiring freeze or if they are hiring. Let's see if we can find Aldi's. I love Aldi's. They are definitely hiring. Let's look at some other ones. Allergen hiring freeze we're seeing there. Allstate hiring. So I'm still in the A's. American Airlines. Okay, so that's one that we can anticipate. The airline industry isn't doing very good right now. But we can go through here, see all of these different companies, and it's a great place to start to see, are they hiring? Do they have a freeze? What's going on? So we just wanted to share that resource with you. So let's talk about holding yourself accountable for your job search. The first part is building a strategy. Knowing exactly what your target geographic location is, and can you broaden that? Maybe you want to live in Tulsa, but you're open to opportunities in Oklahoma City. I would say this is a time to broaden your scope if you're able to. What industries or positions are you targeting? So we don't want you just to take an approach of, well, I'm just going to take any job that I can find. We still want you to be strategic. We want you to find a position that lines up with your career goals. And again, is going to put you where you want to be, 2-3 years down the road versus just taking the first thing that comes up. What search engines will you use? I mentioned the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits earlier. That's a great one. If you're in the Dallas area, I want you to check out Say Yes to Dallas. That is the Chamber of Commerce there, and a lot of employers are going to be posting their positions on that job board. Again, that's sayyestodallas.com. How will you leverage connections on LinkedIn? We'll have a whole session on how to use LinkedIn, but if you have a company you're interested in, you need to be connecting with the Oklahoma State grads that are at that company and see if they have any tips and advice or insights they can share with you. Create a well-researched company target list. We tell you to do this for the career fair, right? We want you to come in with your list of companies that you want to make sure that you speak to. We want you to come up with a well-researched company target list that then you can start tracking activity on. Creating a timeline. We want you to create a realistic timeline to help you keep on track. And I put the word realistic in here because if you set the expectation that you want to have a job offer by May 1st, you could be setting yourself up for disappointment. We don't know. We don't know if you're going to have a job offer by then. So when I say timeline, we more want to talk through, I'm going to have my resume completed by this time. I want to start interviewing by this time. A timeline of what your activities are going to look like. Account for the fact that interview processes will last longer and offers may be delayed or postponed. Recruiters are historical and have a reputation at being late and following up with candidates. And unfortunately, I think that may only get worse just given the current climate. But be patient. If you are in communication with a recruiter and you're not hearing back and you're not sure what the next step is, you need to contact the Easton Center. You can email us at eastoncenter@okstate.edu and we'll get you connected to a career coach that way. Or you can go to the STAR system and set up an appointment with a career coach that way as well. Or if you know our email addresses, you can email us directly too. But we're happy to help you craft what that follow-up message is to a recruiter. When will you have your resume completed by? When will you have your cover letter finished and how will you plan on customizing it? When will you start practicing for an interview? How many applications will you submit each week? How many companies will you research each week? I know this sounds like a lot, but we want you to come up with a timeline and almost a to-do list so that you can help hold yourself accountable for certain activities each week. This is the best way to set yourself up for success. Again, I am a firm believer that all of this is going to lead to great opportunities for you. Maybe not immediately, but it's going to lead to those eventually down the road. And the best thing you can do is set yourself up with a really strong plan on how to get there. Let's talk about tracking activity. I mentioned this at the beginning. It can be very overwhelming very quickly when you're just shooting off resumes left and right, and you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh gosh, I don't even know who all I applied to today. It feels like 20. Creating that company target list, do it in Excel. If Excel works for you, if Microsoft Word, I don't really care what format you use, but you have your target list of companies. You have the positions that you're applying for, when you applied to them, when you contacted a recruiter, when you connected with someone on LinkedIn. Keep that timeline so that you can go back to that and say, I emailed Susie last Tuesday and she said she'd follow up by Friday. Now it's Tuesday, so maybe it's a good time to send a follow-up note. That's going to help you keep yourself more organized. Setting weekly goals with that. So with that tracking activity, knowing what your goals are for each week and who you want to follow up with. We talked about and tracking your progress for each company that you're pursuing. The last piece that we want to cover is an accountability partner. If you have a friend of yours that's going through the same type of job search process that you are, we strongly encourage for you to connect with them and be each other's accountability partner, meaning that you check in at least weekly, if not multiple times a week, saying, hey, where are you at with your search? Here's what I have. What do you have? How can I help you? We are absolutely willing and want to be your accountability partner. We have career coaches that are aligned with each of our majors. I'll go through those quickly, but you can write down the name of your career coach if you don't know already. If you're a finance or accounting major, Kelly Ebert is your career coach. If you are marketing, entrepreneurship, general business, or international business, Savannah Robinson is your career coach. And if you are management, hospitality, tourism management, MIS, or economics, then your career coach is Mike Stump. Don't think I forgot any, but those are the career coaches. And again, if you need help finding your career coach, you can just email us at eastoncenter@okstate.edu, and we're happy to be your career coach and help walk you through this process. I want to circle back to one of the quotes that we talked about in the beginning, which is taking advantage of the ambiguity in the world and look at something and think what else it might be. Again, you could discover a career path that you never knew existed, that you will be immensely more satisfied and fulfilled with, that you wouldn't have been aware of had we not been in the current situation that we are. So embracing this with curiosity and a positive mindset, being open to those. And then what are you doing today to make yourself more marketable? So what are the things that you're doing today? If you are on this call, we are so appreciative of your time and to be here, and you're already doing something today to help make yourself more marketable. So we want to hear about the TED Talks that you're watching, the podcasts that you're listening to, the career coach meetings that you're having, the mock interviews, the resume reviews. I challenge you to do something every single day throughout this process to help make yourself more marketable. Here's our lineup for this bootcamp series. So today we did the kickoff. Next week, we'll start on Tuesday with advanced resume overview. And we will be doing these every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 2 p.m. for the month of April. So we'll have different topics every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 2 p.m. Getting creative with your job search. I mentioned Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits, the Say Yes to Dallas website. We'll give you more of those and talk about how you can customize those there. Virtual networking using LinkedIn, beyond the website, how to really research a company. This is one of my favorite topics, and so we'll get a little geeky and dig into some financial metrics for companies. Interviewing part 1 and 2 and virtual etiquette. Should I pursue a graduate degree? We'll have our experts here from the Watson Graduate College. They'll visit with you about what grad programs we have, what the deadlines are, and what careers that could lead to. How to become more marketable, and then we'll wrap it up with a career coach Q&A panel to help answer anything that we haven't done so far for you. That was a lot of information. I went through it pretty quickly. And again, this is being recorded, but I just wanted to go ahead and end there by thanking you for coming and attending this first Kickoff Virtual Bootcamp webinar, and ask what questions you have. And you can submit these just by asking them, or you can submit them through the chat as well. Okay. Well, that just means I did a really good job answering them all, right? Okay, I got no questions, but thank you. Fantastic. Well, we are here for you. We want to help you throughout this process, so please get in touch with us. My email address is abby.davis@okstate.edu. You can feel free to contact me directly as well. Thank you, good luck, and we'll see you next week.